So welcome to this extended tutorial, which will be a little bit longer than the shorter video that I also created. It will take approximately 40-50 minutes, where I will go through the end-to-end setup of this tutorial. So how you go from an Oracle Cloud free tier account, deploying all your services, inserting all the data, and then building the application itself. So this is a tutorial which will go through how you can incorporate Spatial into app development done in Oracle Apex, which is a low-code app development framework. And as I said, this is all done using the Oracle Cloud free tier. If we look at the free tier architecture for this, we're gonna use what's called the autonomous database free tier, which is 20 gigabytes and 1 CPU. The Apex is running on the database itself. We are then gonna incorporate the plugins that are available in order to do map renderings and also in order to create interactive map features and even spatial analysis. Hopefully, by the end of this tutorial, we will end up with an interactive GIS web application which you can start sending out to your users and start testing with. Let's head into the session itself. So we're now in the OCI cloud environment, and I'm logged in here to my free tier account, as you can see in Frankfurt. And what we want to do right off the start here is to deploy autonomous data warehouse. So I will click there. So this is where our Apex application will run. So simply click Create Autonomous Database. Choose your compartment. I will go with root in this case. Give it a name, ADV. For example, I will just go with ADV actually to identify that it's autonomous data warehouse. We will go with the data warehouse. You could go with the transaction processing, which is suitable for some Apex applications when you have high change of your data. However, since we're going to use some spatial analysis, I will go ahead and use the data warehouse. We will go with shared infrastructure. Here, if you're like me on a trial or free account, you can use always free. So this means it will always be free, which is a really nice offer from Oracle. And as you can see, we get some predefined limits, so 1 CPU and 20 gigabyte of storage. Then go ahead and give it a secured database password to the admin account. Oops. There we go. I will use the Oracle network and license included since it's always free tier. And then simply create autonomous database. And there we go. It's now provisioning and it will take about 5 minutes, so we will meet again once it's done. So we're back and it's ready. I think it took no more than 2 minutes actually, so it goes rather quick, I have to say. So you're faced with a bunch of different options, but for this tutorial we'll go straight to what we need for this lab. So if we click on the tabs here for tools, you will see that we have SQL Developer Web here, which we will use in a second, and Oracle Application Express, which we need to create our spatial application in here. So I will go ahead directly and open that, and it will open up the Apex menu for me. This can take a couple of seconds, especially first time you open it. There we go. So we're now faced to log into the admin services of Apex. If you want to switch between these two, you can also click here to workspace login or sign in, and you can log into your workspace. However, we just created the database and just open up Apex. We don't have a workspace. We want to create that. So I'll go back to admin service and I will log in here. And you need to provide your database admin password here. And you're automatically taken to a screen which can recognize your first time it's logging into Apex. So it suggests you creating a workspace. So we will go ahead and do that. Here, say if you have the database already running, you can already point to a database user you want to use as your workspace to have your data. In my case, I don't have that, so I will create a new one. I will call it Apex in this case. Give it a password. This is, since it's a database user or a schema we're creating, you need to follow the database rules for this password as well. Workspace name, we'll go with Apex as well. Create workspace. Let's see. There we go. So it's been created. You can create additional workspaces if that's the case. Otherwise, we will go ahead and log out from the admin console and log into our newly created workspace. So it was Apex, and then the password. I will go ahead and remember that workspace and username. Sign in. And there we go. We're now ready to start building our applications. But first we need to actually insert our data, and today's lab will do that in SQL Developer Web. So if you go back to our Autonomous and the console, you will see that we have SQL Developer Web here. So I will open that. And we will log in. And as of now, SQL Developer is from the get-go only available for the admin account. So I will log in as admin and actually enable my Apex user to use SQL Developer Web. So I will skip the tutorial. Let's lower this one a bit. Alright, so we need to give clearance for that. I have actually created a document. I could provide this information in the description. Actually not this one, it's this one. And here I have a procedure. So this gives access to a database user to use SQL Developer Web. So this is how it looks like. You have some parameters which you need to fill in, and that's the schema name, which is Apex. And then what our schema alias should be. So that's basically the URL mapping pattern that it says. What it should say in the URL, and why not just keep it as Apex. And I will go ahead and run that. And it shall be ready. So successfully completed. And let's see. So how do you find this? So usually what I do is to copy paste this this URL, and you can see here is our domain where we're acting on in Oracle Cloud. And then you have admin, and here we want to just enter our new Apex user. Sometimes it takes some time for it. Let's see if we can go ahead and access it right out of the get-go. Seems alright, so I will go in, try, put Apex. And we can see now we're logged in as Apex. If I go back to our old screen, there is admin. We can now remove that. We get the tutorial again. And we're logged in as Apex. So that's fairly simple actually, even though you need to add that procedure yourself. So now we need to insert our data to our Apex workspace and our Apex user. So I have some data which is essentially customers and warehouses. So first of all, we create the tables. So I'll just go ahead and copy paste this. And I will try to leave in the description of this video the material I'm using for this lab. So I will go ahead, let's do a commit as well, why not? And I will do Control Enter or run the query. And as you can see, we now created the two database tables. To go ahead and delete that, and I will remove the texts. Now what we need to do is to create some metadata. Sometimes this is created automatically. I usually do it anyways. So we need to create metadata for our geometry column here. So you can see the coordinate system here. This is SRID, which is called in spatial terms. So this is for VGS 84, official reference system. So we will just go ahead and run this. And it succeeded. So that's great. We now created the metadata for the geometry. We now will go ahead and load in the data. So the warehouses is quite straightforward. It's only 4 lines of data essentially, and a commit. As you can see, we are filling in the coordinate system here. There is some other information like state and city. So I will go ahead and run that. It was successful. And the customers, which is a little bit more of them. So I have a separate document here. So I will copy paste that. And I will actually do a commit here as well. And then Control A, Control Enter to run. And this will take a couple of seconds to run since it's 180 lines. There we go. Execution finished. And there we go, there we get the result. So now we've inserted the data, and actually the last thing we will do is to do the spatial indexing of the two tables. So we can, in order to do spatial analysis, location-based queries. So we will simply copy and paste that. Do it for the warehouse and also for the customers and the geometry. So go ahead and run that. There we go. And we're ready. So now you could close down SQL Developer Web. I will actually have it here for the meanwhile. And I will head over to SQL, or to Apex again. So in Apex, this is what you're faced with when you're logging in as a workspace to your workspace. You can actually add people here. So if you want multiple users to work in the same workspace, you can add users to your workspace. So you can develop in a group, which I find useful, or yeah, it's essential if in team environments. So go ahead and create users and what kind of user that is, if it should be a administrator, developer, or end user, so on. But otherwise, I will briefly go over the general tabs here without taking up too much time and focusing on the lab. But essentially you have the app builder where you can create apps from scratch or from a CSV file with some data, or point at some table data. We will go do that in a second. You can also do SQL Workshop. This is quite handy tool, I think. You have the object browser, which does a lot by just clicking without queries. We can see our tables here. So if I go to customers, you can see we can download the table format. We can download the data. We can even insert data in form of CSV files and so on. You have indexes, model, constraints. There's a lot of great tabs here. You can even expose your data in a REST query. I like this one. So you say, oh, I want to REST enable this. Authentication, say no in this case, and then apply. And you get a link here. Or actually, we can just copy here. And if I just enter this link, you get a JSON exposing your data, and this is great, right? You even have the point data and so on. So a little neat feature. I don't see a lot of people talking about. I like it. You can of course see the SQL statements creating these tables, and yeah, you can go ahead and look that. You can also of course, this one takes always a little bit of time. Let's see. Okay, let's skip that one for now. But what you can do as well is to run SQL commands to insert your data as well in a traditional SQL P-SQL manner. And yeah, you can even ingest scripts with pre-done procedures, so on. I will show you a last one, which is the quick SQL. I think this is really handy for people who want to generate tables quickly. So here you don't even have to know this exact, it's helping you write in the SQL query. So if I do a table here, we call it table, let's call it personas, or I don't know. I do personas, and then I do something name, personal number, I don't know, city, you name it. As you can see here, it's generating the SQL for you, and it's actually identifying if it's a combination of letters or if it's a number, and creating an ID and so on is really a fast way to create tables. And you can even, if I remember, let's see, insert 20. Yeah, so if you do that, you even get some test data. Dale City, you know, I mean, it's some dummy data, and it's not super, like, it won't understand maybe if you put in something like, yeah, islands, I don't know, but it generates, it generates okay data, you know. As you can see, it can recognize letter and so on. You have a team development tab, and then you have the app gallery. And we will actually go to the app gallery. This is where we start. So here is some applications which you can start using or look how they're built right out of the box. And I really like this one because you can break them. I like to break them down and look how the different modules are constructed in order for me to program my programs. So in today's lab, we will take a look at the sample geolocation showcase. So I'll go ahead and install the app. And this is a quite neat little feature or app that Karsten have created here at Oracle. And it's showing the spatial possibilities in Apex quite well. And it also contains some plugins, which we will see. So this is a good way of using these plugins, but also looking at how you can actually do use the spatial analysis in the database. So if we go ahead and run this one, and I will log in. Let's see, I'm usually logging in as Rasmus. Now I will log in as Apex. Let's see. if I can enter correctly. I accept. So here we go. Here you have a set of, and then you can go ahead and look at these. This is a set of functionalities. So area of interest. I will not go in too deep of this, but essentially you can do some tools, create some area of interest, overview map, search within distance, which is a neat little tool in our database. So this is essentially just you do a ring, right, and then in this case it will search and find something within distance of this circle. And yeah, of course you have the map region here. You can check out the others as well, but in my case I'm really interested in the map, right? So we don't have to write any JavaScript ourselves, just use the map here to our application. So what I can do then is, if I shut this one and I press manage, I can also change, let's see, I think I should do that. I became a bit hesitant. So if you click edit page here instead, I will go ahead and do that. We can go ahead and look how the page is constructed. So here you can actually go in and look at it in detail, right? So this is where you design and program your pages. So if I go to applications here and I go to export import and I click export, I can actually export the whole application, but in my case I want to have some of the plugins. So here we can see all the plugins that Karsten have used and created for this application. So there is a lot of them. A geocoder if you're interested in that, a custom marker, I don't know, there is a bunch of them. Location, get location. But in my case I'm interested in the map region, so that's the plugin I will export. So I simply click export, save it somewhere where I can take use of it. I don't know, I will just, for this sake, put it in documents. And there we go. So say now we want to use this one and we want to create our own application. So I simply click create, and you can create from a file. In my case I will just go ahead and take a new application and I will name it Spatial or why not customers or customers warehouse. You can go ahead and change your design if you want dark, if you want to how the layout should be, perhaps a icon. I don't know if they have the map. I like, let's do with blue. Blue is nice. And yeah, look, we have a map here. Perfect. I will go ahead and use that one. And yeah, we already have a home page, but you can add more pages. So we have different out-of-the-box functionalities like a faceted search, some charts, you know. In my case, I will just go ahead and use the home page in this case. I will use this. So this essentially enables some features out of the box, feedback from users, activity reporting, access control, you name it. So I will go ahead and click create application. And I will go ahead and run it just to show you how it looks like when it's blank. So remember, so fairly empty, right? You have some neat features here if you want to do it. You have a debug, so you can debug your problems. You have, you can also look at sessions. You have theme roller, so this one makes it easy to design your page. So what I usually always do this because I like to change it to something a little bit more of a laid back color, a little bit a little bit darker. Let's go with something like that. So I'm happy like that. And then I will go ahead, I will move it up so I can see it. Save as. Rasmus, that's my name. Let's save it like that. Okay. Set as current. Okay. And there we go. Change just the header of the color, but you can go ahead and change more. Add pictures and so on. So say now I want the map region. I go to edit page. There's multiple ways you could add a page, but say I want it on the home page. Then I have content body here, create region, map. And oh, I almost forgot. We need to actually, of course, import the plugin to this application. So what I will do first of all is to just do a little, let's see here. I will go ahead and turn off a setting, friendly URLs, because it's not applicable right now with the map region. So just, or some functionalities of it. So we'll go ahead and just uncheck that to make sure to do that. As of now, it could be improved in the future. And then I will click import. I will choose, actually, we want to import the plugin, right? And I will choose a file. So we were in documents, if I remember correctly. And there we go. I will select that one and I will click next. And next. Indeed, I want to have it in this application, indeed. And it's already installed. So we head back to application and now we can click on our, if I forgot to be clear, here you have the pages. You can now go ahead and click on home page here. And now we should be able to go to the map region we just created and look at this. Now we have it here as an option, as a type of content. So great, I will just do that and I will just save it like that and take a look how, if everything went okay. All right, we have a map, great, and it's fitting quite nicely into our page. I can't zoom with scroll and I have to, but it looks good, right? So if you want to now, you can click edit at page 1 again and you say now you want to change some basic things. What is nice is that in this plugin you actually can change some things just from entering parameters here. So if you want to work with another map layer, I will go ahead and use Oracle map layer, but an initial zoom level and map center when you open the application and so on. I will go ahead and, for example, activate mouse wheel zoom. I like that feature. Maybe scale bar, why not? And you simply save. And if I go back now you won't see it, but I'm actually scrolling now and you see now I can scroll in the map. So just some simple things. So that's great. But it's empty, right? It got no data as of yet. So say you now want to populate this with data. Then there is actually a help region here. Let's see. Usually I get, okay, so usually it gives me some help there, but okay, then I will be the help for this session. But essentially there is some queries or query you can do to visualize your data. So here I have a document. I will also put in the description. So say I want to now select I will select all, so I will select warehouse ID as the ID. I will, and this where I have the geometry as geometry, and I want to style red, say. And if I save that and I open up, you can see we are now able to see where these warehouses are located on the map. So very simple actually. Let me shut down the geolocation showcase. So that's quite easy. Okay, let's bring this to another level, right? So let's go to the next one, map selected warehouse. So now we want to show the warehouse that we select. What do we do then? We actually just we need to create a select tool, right? So if I actually what I can do then is to create a region, and this will be my report region, and it will be a classic report. Let's see if I can do that. Classic report, I was blind. So this is a report, so say we also want to list our warehouses. Okay, why not? So you actually don't have to do a query to select which data you want to display in the report. You can search for it. I want to show my warehouses. Okay, great. If we just go ahead and look at that. Now I'm zooming out, but we have just created a report there with showing this. So that's one way. Of course, for example, there we showed the position of it. It's maybe not the data that we really need. So if we say we can actually, what we can do instead is just do a select query, and we see actually what is selected. Let's remove the location and location ID. We don't really need to display that kind of information, and we just let's see. So this is quite good with this tool. So yeah, there is a comma there I should not have. So this is quite good. Also, you can check the queries. It will actually check it's correct. It's calling for data. So I got to use that. That was handy. And let's see now. So now we are displaying actual data, you know, that we can see. So San Francisco, which warehouse ID, and so on. But we wanted to visualize the warehouse in question. So what we will do is to create actually let's see, a page item, if I remember correctly, and we will use a select list. So I will call this one, I think in my little data here, I call it for P2 new. So I just call it P2 new, but you can name it whatever really that you can identify it with. Label here, so I will just have warehouse, perhaps a semicolon, and then we need to say, okay, what do we want to point at here? So we could have a SQL query. So essentially what we want to point at is the warehouses, right? So what you could use this, but what I like to do actually is to create a list of values here, because it is quite handy. It was pointing there if you want a SQL query or a list of values. So let's create a list of values called warehouses. Why not? And then we want to create on our table warehouses. There we go. Next. And here, so what's neat here is that it makes it quite simple, right? Because you have display column and it actually selects write warehouse name and return column warehouse ID. So this is what it will return when someone selects it. This is what will be displayed. So create. Okay, we will just go ahead and we should now have a list of values. So if I go back to columns or to report, and I will recreate this page item, which we call P2 new. It was a select list. We call warehouses. Now I will actually use this shared component that we just created. And here we go, warehouses. So that makes life a little bit easier. And I will save that. So if we go in and look at that, we can actually see that we can select warehouses now. But if we look at the map, which I'm getting screwed here from choosing to scroll with mouse wheel, but you can see here nothing happened when we click, and that's because we have only actually created a select list but no action. So what we need to do is two things. The map region, we need to actually say that we want to display the warehouse selected. So did I shut down? 1 second, I think I shut down my cheat sheet. So let me just open up that quickly. Weird that I shut that one. Apex code. Okay. So I will go ahead and copy that map house. So essentially it's very similar. So if you open up the editor, you can just see it's a where condition we add here. And so we say where warehouse ID is equal to P2 new, which was the select list that we just inserted, which will return an ID when a user selects a warehouse name. And we click OK. We can also do P2 new, and I remember I actually have the same error here with a comma that should not be here. So now it's green. And then we need to do a last thing, and that's essentially to make a dynamic action on our select lists, which will essentially call a change to that map region. So when we want to create this dynamic action change, I will just call it refresh map. I will call this one. So make a change when this list got changed of its value. That's correct. And then we have here an action. So if that's true, if the selection list is changed, we want to refresh region map. That's it. So let's open up the application again. You can see now it's not displaying anything. Let's see if I can do control zoom out a bit so I get a better overview. I think that's better, right? So I select Seattle and we get a pin in Seattle. So this is quite neat, right? So you can go ahead and play with this. I can do even more. Of course, I could change the report. Here is essentially a query I did to change the report. So the warehouse in question becomes selected so it selects the information of that report. So what we could do is like change this SQL query of the report, and we can submit the P2 new as the item, save, and then of course to that same button I will do another true action, which essentially refreshes the report instead. So report, save. So I mean, here really you can play around, right? So if I now change to South-Lake, it changes the report to that, and it displays the pin. So the last thing I will show before ending this is how you can incorporate spatial analysis into your application, which I think is really nice. So here I will go ahead and actually create a new report. So classic report, I will actually go ahead and use SQL query. And what do we want to show in this report? So here we could actually show, for example, so let's see if I have it here, student exercise. So what do we have here? We actually have, let's go through in the editor. So here I actually have a select query of the customer table, and then I select both the warehouses and customers, where this ID reflects from the select list we have, and it will essentially do within distance search. So it will select, in this case, it will select all customers that are within the 5 closest. In this case, I would like some more. Let's go with 15. I want a proper list here. So 15, the 15 closest, customers to that warehouse. So if I click OK, let's put pnew as page item to submit. And essentially, let's also call this something. So title, I will call it customers. Essentially, I will call it customers, closest customer or something, right? So, and then of course again add the dynamic action. So when that button click happens, or when they select something in the list, we want to create another true action, and we essentially do the same thing, right? We refresh region closest customer. Let's see if this works. It would be nice. Leave page. So this should actually be named warehouses or something like this. So if I now select San Francisco, you can see that the spatial analysis is done underneath, and it selects the 15 closest customers to that warehouse. So if I change that to, say, Salt Lake, you can see it's changing. Now some of the customers were all, still the closest ones, but essentially you display that. So here I will actually leave it up to you to explore more. Of course, you could paint the customers that are closest in blue. You name it. I think the possibility is really endless. And yeah, thanks for watching this lab. I hope you find this useful, and go ahead and try to create some nice applications out there. Thanks.